Hey, dreamers, this is Guy Hutchinson of Drunk on Disney and the Sesame Place book. And the one thing I want to tell the world is that if there is something you want out there and you can't find it, you create it.
Hey dreamers, Joe Pardo here, and I am so glad that you're joining me today. Today's episode is going to be have Derek Zardus on, who is from I think it's Globo Run, because he's going to it is globorun.com because he is going to be running all 50 there's 50 states, right Matt?
I'd say so.
Yeah, 50 states. Okay. So, yeah, all 50 states in 50 weeks. I think it's 50 states in 50 weeks, I believe. It's been a little while since we've recorded the episode. But yeah, so anyway, as you can hear, I have a guest with me here for my what's supposed to be a monologue / question and answer. But it just worked out because Matt, one of my brothers, is here.
Hello.
And it just makes sense to have him join me.
It does make sense, seeing as I was right across the street and I was off, and I was going to come over anyway. So
Yeah. So it just worked out, and I hadn't gotten a chance to record this sooner. So because Sunday I was at our baby shower pretty much the entire day, and then packing, then unpacking, and then unboxing and sorting. And it took quite a while, and I'm glad that my mom and my stepdad Fred showed up to help me and Melissa out at the time to get that all situated. But yeah, so we're here. So Matt, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself since you're here and you've never been on the show in over 200 episodes. So congratulations.
oh, it's overdue. Let's see. I've known Joe for a number of years, and yeah, we're almost like brothers. I'd say I always consider him as a younger brother. We've always stayed in touch. I've had a lot of friends where they moved away, or I don't know, they just.
I'm just not moving away. That's the problem.
That's true. No, it's Joe's great because he's. I mean, as you all know, he's a confident guy. He's honest, and I love the fact he's dependable. If he says he's going to do something, he does it. I've had too many friends where I'm trying to coordinate a get together, and then at the last minute, I'm calling them up trying to sort things out, and they're like, "Oh, we were supposed to do something today," or "Oh yeah, sorry, I'm in Virginia today. I didn't even know." And Joe's like, "I'm ready to go. Where are you? I should have been here 15 minutes ago." So Joe's awesome.
Oh, well, thank you, Matt. Because I like people to extend the same courtesy to me, so I can't expect people to do that for me if I'm not willing to do that for them.
Exactly, and I feel too many people are just easily distracted. I don't know if it's just a current thing, and I don't want to sound like an old fart, but it's just like the Louis C.K. joke, the smartphones, everybody's sitting there in a room texting to each other. I just feel like I'm so often at a place where I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get things done, and people are just like off in their own little world. It's refreshing to find somebody that, while they are on the internet and are so involved with technology, can still take the time to pick up the phone and call you, and you don't have to get through to them only through Facebook Messenger. It's a nice change of pace.
Well, yeah, I never want to get to that, but I will say this: haven't you ever seen the pictures of the trains from like the 50s and 40s or whatever? With everybody's got a newspaper in front of them. It's like it's a whole big train car, and every single person has the newspaper pulled in front of their eyes.
Well, that's because people were more shy back then.
Oh yeah, clearly they were trying to hide behind the newspaper. Now we're just trying to hide behind the phone, but it's not big enough. Well, it's getting there. Maybe we all need just tablets now to hide behind our faces behind.
I don't know. It's and look, I like taking a newspaper on the train, or I like reading a book, even if I'm.
They still sell newspapers?
They do. Yeah, actually, well, the last one I brought was that Back to the Future newspaper. But
yeah. Oh, okay. So
that was important.
That was important.
I don't know what the articles are about, but it had Marty McFly in the cover, and by God, I was going to get
it. So let's see. So this week I didn't get a whole lot done as far as my journey is concerned, because this week for me was really, I was tired a lot, and I don't know why. Like, I'd be up for like 4 or 5 hours, and then it'd be like, okay, time for a nap, and I'm like, but that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I have so many things to accomplish, especially, as we grow closer to Ava time, as we've been calling it around here. It's really important for me to be muscling towards, making all this work as I don't have a real full-time job at this point. So, I'm very well aware, though. I mean, the week before, I did submit to a lot of speaking engagements. And I think on Monday I did a couple, like a handful of them. But I've only been shortlisted for one so far. I've been declined for two. One was because they decided that they didn't want to pay a speaker anymore, so they withdrew their application, or their I don't know what you call it, their wanted ad, if you will.
Right.
And the other one was, which is so weird to me, is that they declined me for a talk. It was for leadership, and they were trying to equate leadership to the Yellow Brick Road and the Wizard of Oz. They wanted somebody to like make that connection, because the Yellow Brick Road is their theme for 2016. So for them, it was like, okay, how do we get somebody that they could do leadership and equate it to the Wizard of Oz? And I'm like, this is like right down my alley. Like, I don't have a specific talk that equates everything to the Wizard of Oz, but I was like, I could totally make it work, right? And I guess I didn't do a good enough job explaining to them that I have the qualification to do such a thing.
I mean, you didn't walk in and just say, follow the Yellow Brick Road, trot the mic and walk out, because I mean that would have been the easiest presentation ever. I mean, it's pretty much right there. You just kind of follow along, and it's eventually you'll get where you need to go.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't good enough.
No, I maybe it's because I'm more about like how to find that Yellow Brick Road, because a lot of times like people will be. I mean, again, this is for leadership, so it's a little bit different. But for me, it would be, it's all about finding it, right? Because it's not always very apparent. I mean, obviously for me, I'm like all over the place when it comes to building different things and different organizations and products and services and shows and stuff like that. So, to just follow the Yellow Brick Road, like, that's great if you're going to go to school or something like that. But I think I did a good job at explaining it. But I also know that I'm not good at explaining things.
But you are. I mean, what you're saying makes sense. I mean, like with my work, I can equate to, we have a lot of people that are highly motivated, but you have to sort of put them in the right direction. If you put them on a project or show them, hey, this is what you could be doing, they will just take it from there and run with it. But some people just, lack that sense of direction. Like, I have all this this ability, I have all this skill, I just don't know where to apply it to. I'm confused. I have so many different choices. It's overwhelming. You're like, just, got to give them that tunnel vision, all right, do this, and just watch them take off, and, and they'll do their own thing. But people just, they tend to lack that guidance, or, maybe they're just overwhelmed, because there are so many choices when it comes to careers, or, even just what to have for breakfast, for that matter.
Yeah. Well, if you have more than one option in the house, then you have to figure out which path you're going to take, that the super sugary one, or the, as Matt knows, the kashi grain one.
Kashi.
So that was it was a bit disappointing to and as some of you know and follow me on Facebook, it was a bit disappointing, but I really do feel like it was their loss on that one. But maybe I think maybe possibly they wanted somebody that was more in their backyard, because it was in Tampa. And if being in Tampa, I'd have to fly there, and the money was good, but it wasn't great. So it would have costed me probably like $200-300 just to go do the event. So I probably would have walked away with about $700, or maybe they found someone cheaper. So it's not necessarily that I guess I wasn't the best fit, and I guess that's kind of like the lesson to learn is there's more. As I've written in my book, there's always multiple perspectives, and you should look at it from that. And that's what I did, was broke it down like, hey, it's not just because of me. It's not just because of what I bring to the table. It's like, hey, they want someone in the backyard. Maybe they actually only wanted to pay $500 instead of like $1,000 or something like that. But I had to, to me, I have to charge $1,000 because I gotta travel there. If I charge $500, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna fly to Tampa for a day and a half and make $200. Like,
Which would be ridiculous. And and charging less also takes away from your value. You have to be able to show that, hey, I'm worth the money to bring me out here. I will put on a fantastic presentation. Who knows why they didn't pick you? I mean, you could analyze it all day and never have an answer. I mean, but you're already moving on to the next thing. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. That's their loss.
Right. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I just wanted to bring it up for anybody who didn't see it on Facebook, But yeah, so what was the other thing? Well, this week I helped Matt move, which it was supposed to happen on Sunday or something, right?
Yeah, then we got the blizzard. Well, not really a blizzard, but
it was Monday. Monday it was supposed to happen, right? And yeah, we had the snow, and it would have been a real pain getting your stuff out. Even though some of it was already melting by Monday, it still was pretty bad. I mean, schools were out. People didn't go to school, and in some cases, people still weren't going to work on Monday. So even though it stopped snowing, early Sunday morning or late Saturday night, it was still pretty rough. I mean, heck, I was out Monday, and they were still over in Washington Township area. They had cops off to the side of the road with these giant equipment still not plowing, but they were shoveling out the snow.
Yeah.
I can't think of what it's called, but I can't think of what that. So yeah, they were using the giant.
Quick, pause the podcast.
Like a giant loader, to scoop the snow up off the side of the road. Not off the road, but dig out lanes, the right turn lanes and stuff like that. So it was still very much not a great situation out on Monday. But there were still a lot of people out.
There were, I mean, but even at the apartment, it was a mess. I mean, I saw people out there trying to dig out their cars with, like cat litter scoopers, and it was I don't know what's going on.
Well, I guess no one's gonna steal that like a shovel, huh?
People were not prepared. Yeah, I got 2 shovels stolen. Actually, I was very surprised. I mean, I would have lent them out to someone if they had just asked, but I turned my back. I turned around, the shovel was gone. I started walking around from building to building trying to find it, but even if I had, how can you say that's my snow shovel? They'll pretty much look identical.
You gotta write your name on it, man.
Exactly.
Or you gotta lick it.
Well, then they wouldn't have taken it, yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, so I mean, getting to help you out was great. Glad we got you all pretty much done. The majority of your apartment was moved out in one day, and we got to get you some smaller boxes and less things to put in said boxes, because you got some big heavy boxes.
Well, and that's been an ongoing debate between Joe and myself for some time, where Joe has made it clear that he's more than happy to help me move, but he'd be a lot happier if I would just get rid of some of the junk that I don't use. Or as Joe put it, if it's not paying you rent and it's taking up space, why the heck is it there? And he's got a point. I'm becoming a bit of a hoarder, I guess. And
stop! You are not nearly that bad. This really isn't that bad. The van, it was one of those E350 vans, if you know what that is. So it had it was a pretty big box truck, but it's not it's not like a big one. It's right. With a lift or anything like that on it. So, it's not that you've gotten to that point. In fact, I think that you kind of had pared down since you were from where you were living before, I think.
I have, yeah. Moving all that stuff is a pain in the neck. And honestly, a lot of it's books. I mean, I read the books every so often, but nowadays I can find digital copies of books or pretty much anything else, music. I mean, there's really no reason to have the physical media laying around the house, taking up space, and then
if it's
take it all day
precious
long.
First edition or something, then I understand. That's understandable,
These Star Wars figures are vintage. I can't take them out of the package.
Well, that's fine. We don't want you to play with them. We just want you to put them in a place that
Look, they're for show only in the proper lighting conditions.
Yeah, that's why they made them.
Right.
That's exactly why what they were thinking. That
I'm pretty sure it's somewhere in the box in small print. They are not to be taken out of the package.
And honestly, moving your stuff helped me realize again that there's a lot of things that I need to go through and get rid of, and in fact this spring I want to host a giant I hate yard sales, but I want to host like a giant yard sale here in our neighborhood or whatever, because there was a ton of stuff up in the attic that I've just kind of been like, oh, I'll just pack on down. And before you know it, it's like the whole attic is full of stuff that some of it's useful. I do go up and pull things out like cables and wires and stuff, but some of this computer stuff I've been holding on to. And while I did do a purge of that like 10 years ago before I moved out, it's time to do another little purge, because a lot of this stuff is like, it's useful. Maybe 8 years ago or 10 years ago, it would be a lot more useful.
Hey, that dot matrix printer might be slow, but it'll never break.
That's very true. They will print until the head breaks, like just the whole thing falls apart and crumbles. Though I don't think I have any of those up in there. Though I do have some old inkjet printers, which I don't know why I still am holding on to. And honestly, at this point, I'd rather just throw them out and be done with it than anything. And I feel bad throwing stuff out like that. But the thing is, like, the cartridges can you even still? You probably can, because it's like, what is it? The HP 74 and 75s. So they seem to have been a mainstay for a long time. So I probably could still, but I think there's a reason why we upgraded in the first place. So.
No, I agree. I mean, that's one of my biggest hangups with getting rid of things, is the fact that I hate to throw stuff out. And it's like, well, I paid for it. It had its usefulness. Now I want to get something back for it. But, as we discussed, I mean, the cost of shipping most of the time isn't worth it, because I'm getting so little back for the item I'm selling, and then the shipping on top. It's like, well, what's the other option? A yard sale, which we only have a couple of people showing up, and they may or may not be interested in printers.
Yeah.
Or Craigslist, which I've had very mixed experiences with. Although I learned that the best thing to do at Craigslist is to go to the police station. If you're going to do a trade with somebody.
What? Do you go all the way to the police station?
I've had some bad experiences with Craigslist.
Oh,
So
wow.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like you said criminalist.
You know what? It feels like criminal list at
Oh,
times.
come on. I haven't had that kind of problem before.
Well, you weren't selling vintage Star Wars figures. You don't understand the collector mentality.
Well, then they should be worth enough to sell and ship on eBay.
You think so, right?
Well, I think, I like I said, I'm ready. There's I have like a lot of old physical media. Like I've transferred a lot of my movies and TV shows from DVD to digital, and I have them on my server. So they're readily available 24/7, ready to go anywhere in the world as long as I have internet. So it's like, well, why am I holding on to this physical box that I have no use for at this point?
Yeah. How many copies of Army of Darkness do I really need?
That's a great question, man. How many? How many?
How would they release it? What, like 7 or 8? Probably more than that. I mean,
just keep re-releasing it. People will keep buying it. You know what? It keeps it on the store shelves. That's probably why they do those re-releases. Because the DVDs and the Blu-ray section has gotten so small at this point, because digital is cannibalizing the out of it, that it's like, okay, well, if we re-release it, then they have a reason to put it on the shelf again. Like, otherwise, there's no reason to get rid of, or there's no reason to keep it on the shelves.
There's really not. But yeah, no, there's definitely a market for re-releasing old films. I mean, look at Jaws. They had the 25th anniversary edition and then the 30th anniversary edition. And it's like, what changed between those 5 years?
They found more footage.
They went back and, CG sharks, I guess. I don't know.
CGI all the shark, yeah, because well, actually,
special edition.
At this point, they probably could do a pretty good Jaws looking Jaws at this point.
Yeah, I think most of the other ones have been pretty cheesy looking. Although there was that scene where what was it, Deep Blue Sea, where yeah, they're pretty bad CGI sharks.
Yeah, but dude, that was like over 10 years ago. That was like 13 years ago at this point. I think Deep Blue Sea came out in like 2003. It's 2016. They've gotten better.
Well, I shouldn't say all CGI. Most CGI I've seen does not age well. Yeah, especially stuff from like 10 years ago. Remember the Scorpion King?
Yeah. Oh.
That was bad when it came out.
Yeah. Well, It probably took them so long to make it.
Yeah, I really like practical effects, but I understand that, it's cheaper at this point to do things CG, and plus I just have to assume that there's less people that have been brought up doing practical effects, because the industry, that's not where they're at anymore. I mean,
right.
Why do something that's less cost efficient for the sake of nostalgia?
Exactly. So we're like way off on topic of getting rid of the stuff that you don't use or need anymore, and maybe the physical or the experience or the reason that you keep it, being sentimental or something like that is it is a reason, but if you have access to it otherwise digitally, like, wouldn't it be great to just like pick up one hard drive and
it's fantastic.
then just move and just go?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to sit there and swap out DVDs? I mean,
yeah, I don't want to either. I mean, even with like, well, we don't have to go down that road. It's all right. It's all. We're already at like 19 minutes here, but
these are all legally downloaded digital items from the iTunes store. Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Exactly.
Cough, cough.
So I do. Hey, there's no cough in here. That's a really bad cough, by the way. You should see a doctor about it. Let's. I do have a question from a listener, Jenna. She had a question about how I gain so much confidence so quickly when moving forward into doing different projects and like, well, really just doing any of the stuff that I'm doing. And it was funny because she wrote it and I forgot to write back to her. And so it's been like 7 days later, but I just wrote back to her that I hadn't seen it, and I was going to answer it on this episode, which comes out tomorrow. So when it comes to confidence, I mean, I think Matt knows me well enough to know that, while I do have confidence, it doesn't come naturally for me, right? Like we have friends, and some friends that are still supposed to be a guest on my show at some point, BJ, that, at some point, hopefully you will, or he will, or she will. I meant she, he, person, yep. Will, yeah. And it just comes naturally for some people, and for me it's not something that comes natural. It's something that I constantly am working on, constantly working towards, and it's something that I find that I have to I'm constantly having a bout with myself, because I don't want my confidence to become arrogance or ignorance. Is it what you're the English guy here?
It would be arrogance, but there's a difference between saying being assertive and letting people know what you want, and being aggressive and demanding something from someone else. It's sort of a fine distinction, but people do appreciate, when you let them know what you want, and you don't kind of beat around the bush without being rude about it. I think, people respond to that better.
Yeah, I know, but it's hard when in the moment when you're trying to make that decision of like, do I take the power road, or do I take the not, or a sign of weakness, I guess is what I'm looking for.
Well, can you provide an example? What's a recent situation you've been in where you had that debate where, should I be more aggressive about this, or should I just kind of cut my losses?
Well, all right. So it's funny because actually right before this, I was having a conversation with a person. I won't name names, but they were supposed to have something done for me on Monday of last week, okay. And I was like, all right, well, I know they're busy. I'm not gonna jump down their throat, because they're doing me a huge favor at the same time. So I was like, all right, I'll let it go. Well, now it's Monday, and I was like, okay, well, it's been a week now, so I have to say something. And fortunately, but unfortunately, one of the first things they said to me was, don't be afraid to just get on my case and like let me know that like, hey, this is supposed to be done, because I have pretty thick skin. But the thing is, like, I don't want people to mistake me asking for something to be me asking for something to be a sign of like demanding. And I know, like I was saying earlier, I know that explaining things is not one of my strong suits. So, and it's something that I've been working on personally and want to get better at. But yeah, so that's a case where it's like, okay, well, I was leeway, but at the same time, like, there's things going on that I kind of need this stuff to get done. But when I talked to that person, they said, oh yeah, like, this is what I was working on. They showed it to me. I was like, wow, this is really awesome. But like, now they're like, okay, well, this week I will definitely get this done for you. So but it's that thing where I don't want to project anger, or like, I don't want to be an angry person.
No, I don't think anybody wants to be angry.
Well, there's people that get paid to be angry, and you know who I'm talking about.
And it's entertaining. I mean, I enjoy watching people flip out. But Yeah, it's tough. I mean, on one hand, you want to be respectful to people, and you understand that things happen. I mean, it's you can't predict for every eventuality. But on the other hand, if something's important to you, you have to let people know, hey, here's what I expect. And it all depends on like how you come across. As long as you're saying this is what I want, you're not like this is why isn't this done yet? Blah 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 blah. You're not attacking. We're just saying, hey, this is what I want. And you check back occasionally. Is this done yet? Where are we at? Just let them know that you're keeping an eye on them, but you're not. You don't want to be breathing down their neck. I think it really just comes on how you. I guess not so much what you say as how you say it. As long as you're not going there with like angry and banging your fist on the table.
Well, again, that's assuming that the person that you're dealing with knows that you're not trying to come across that way. Because sometimes people take things out of context, or they see it how they want to see it. They put that
Sure.
their own spin on it, and actually in this same week I had somebody mistaken what I was saying for that. And it really hurt my feelings, like, because I would never, ever want this person to feel bad or upset about what I was saying to them. And they just totally did not understand where I was coming from at all and took it their own way. Even though I thought I explained it very well. Again, I'm really bad explaining things.
Yeah, well, people do take things out of context, especially with text messages, but even in person, you can.
Well, that one was actually in person.
Well, then they have no excuse.
So, well, yeah, I guess I don't know. It was a bad situation trying to work through that, but but with the rest of, like, when it comes to having confidence as far as like doing stuff, right? Not necessarily just dealing with people or whatever. It's I get a lot of confidence from music, and I'm a huge Kanye West fan, and because he projects not just loving himself and that you should be loving yourself, and obviously he's a pretty polarizing figure to many people, but if you really listen to his music, a lot of it is about projecting your best, most confident self. And not just projecting it, but actually doing it. As I know that this quote's been thrown around a lot, but it's not bragging if you can back it up, or if you can do it. I know there's I forget what baseball player was saying it, or said it. Was it Dizzy? Who was it? I'm Googling it, but I mean, Muhammad Ali apparently said it once, but I also know pretty sure there was a baseball player that once said it. And I can't think. Dizzy Dean, baseball Hall of Famer. It's not bragging if you've done it or can do it. Yeah. Everybody that's confident apparently says this, and it's true, right? Like, and that's one of the things. Like, I know I battle with Melissa from time to time about this. Like, she's like, "Oh, you're sounding too confident, too cocky," and I'm like, "But I've done it. Like, I'm not saying stuff that I haven't done," and I think that's really the important part. Like, it's not it's not that you should go around being like, oh, I'm the best, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, if you're saying stuff because you've done it, like, you did it. So how is that? It's not brag.
Sure, there's nothing wrong with taking charge and saying, I got this, because you know how to do it. You're the best person for the job. Why sit there and, let people debate back and forth? It's like, I can do it. I can do it right now. I can get it done. No questions asked. What are we waiting for? And that's not being cocky. I mean, as the quote states, you can say whatever you want, just be prepared to back it up. If you're just going around just saying stuff because it sounds good, well, that's a different story. But if you've got the experience or you've got the training in something, by all means, you should be proud of that. You should let people know, hey, I can take care of this for you, and do it, and show them, hey, I'm perfectly capable, and I think it raises you up in other people's eyes, and it helps your own self-esteem as well when you can say, you know what, I can do this, I can prove it, I can do well to people, and I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, and you should, because obviously if you can't, people are gonna find out real quick, and you're gonna look pretty silly, to put it nicely.
Another quote that gets tossed around a lot is the fake it till you make it line, which I know it sounds ridiculous, but honestly, I like to think of it as more along the lines of, practice makes perfect, because initially you might be faking something, but the more you work at it, eventually you will become good at it. And that goes for, really anything. And I think confidence is one of those things where if you never project your wants, like my niece, for example. Normally you wouldn't think of a child as confident, but if she wants something, she has this broken record routine where she'll say, "Oh, I want this." "No, you can't have that." "I want it." "Well, we can't have it." "Okay, that's great. I still want it." And eventually we'll come to a treaty. We'll meet her halfway. But she's expressing her wants and she's being confident about it. She's like, "Oh, I can't have it." "That's great, but I still want it." And, not backing down, I think, is part of being confident, because people will try anything to get out of out of a contract or out of an agreement, or just, even something as simple as, I brought my car here yesterday to get it fixed and it's still making this noise. "Oh, well, that's not my problem. You're not a mechanic. What do you know?" It's like, "Well, I know my car is making a weird noise. You told me it was fixed yesterday, so how about you look at it again?" But the reason I bring up mechanics is a lot of people, go in there because they don't know anything about cars. They don't feel confident enough to disagree with the mechanic or even have it explained. And so they just kind of take it in like, well, I guess that's the best I can get. Or even with computers. I mean, a lot of people on my job are afraid to, call up and let us know about their problems, but it's like, well, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not going to be nasty with you. "You're so stupid. How'd this happen? You're an idiot for not backing up your files." It's like, okay, problems happen. We'll figure out what's fixed. Thanks for telling me, making my job easier instead of me having to guess what's wrong, or, wait till things really get bad. And then it's like, now I'm trying to fix something that could have been prevented. So it's, I guess, in a roundabout way I was getting to is you just, you got to speak up for yourself. Let people know what you want. And don't be afraid to keep demanding things until you get at least some of what you want. You're not always going to win, but at least you should get to the point where you feel happy, and you're going to feel a lot better that you spoke up for yourself and not just, let people walk all over you. And it's, true of anything.
I think you just pointed out why you're better at explaining things than I am. I mean, as most people are. I'm just so bad at it.
That's it. I'm taking over the podcast.
There you go, Matt. It's all yours, man.
How do I work all this stuff?
I go to school for that.
Really?
Well, it's now been over 30-some minutes. We should probably wrap this up because we have Derek Zardus on the show, and he, it's wonderful. The amount of dedication. Guy's going to quit his job. Actually, he had already, at this point, has quit his job and started his path to 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 weeks.
It's incredibly impressive.
It is. It's an incredible story, and I can't wait till he gets it all done. And I can't wait till he gets to this area so I can hang out with him a bit and maybe go running with him when he's in our area. So looking forward to that. Matt, I want to thank you for sitting in with me today. It's been a lot of fun, way more fun than it was probably going to be me going on by myself. So
well, thank you for having me. It was an unexpected treat, and I had a good time.
Yeah, definitely love to have you on again. You're way better explaining things than I am. And you know what? That's part of confidence right there. You just gotta
work at it.
Being able to admit when other people are better at something than you are.
And I know between now and the next podcast, you're going to practice at it, and you're going to have an awesome explanation for something that I know nothing about, so I'll have no way to contest it.
I don't know. You're pretty full of knowledge, Matt. It'd be hard to get one by you.
Oh, thank you. And this is all leading to my spin-off podcast.
Well, we can make that happen if you want. All right. Well, get ready for Derek Zardus. Hey, dreamers! This show is made possible by listeners like you. If you love the work that has been done so far, please consider going to howtodream.co/donate to contribute. Thank you so much for your consideration and support. Hey dreamers, today I'm talking with Derek Zardus. That's how you say your last name, right? Zardus?
Yes, dang.
Got it. Who is making his dreams come true by running 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 weeks. Wow.
Good morning.
That sounds awesome, man.
Yeah, when you say that sounds awesome, you say it as if you're saying, boy, that sounds like being strapped into a table and slowly dragged from one end to the other. And to a certain extent it is. if that's your kind of awesome.
Well, yeah. So hey, different strokes, baby.
It's true.
What So let's get back. Let's get into your background here. What before we go into the awesomeness of 50 marathons.
I think I was raised to be a gypsy. I have a long story of many different dreams. My grandfather used to take one of the largest carnivals up and down the East Coast. And so while I was in womb, my parents were traveling with my grandfather on a regular basis. So I've always had a deep-seated passion for travel. My grandfather eventually settled in a small amusement park, and that's where I grew up. I actually started working from the time I was 7. Went into drama, so studied acting at Boston University for a couple of years, went on the road with a show, and unfortunately found that I really loved traveling more than I did performing. So then got hooked up in the cruise industry and worked on cruise ships for about 4 years amongst 3 different lines, was able to do world cruises and see the world on cruise ships. But if you've ever been on a cruise, you know about the all-you-can-eat buffets at all times of the day. And even for somebody as young and active as I was putting on some weight and had always enjoyed running. So I started running at that time on a somewhat consistent basis. So my relaxation in the middle of the day, if I had a chance to break, would be to go run out on deck, either at lunch or at dinner time, where I didn't need to entertain guests at that time, and go for an hour or 2-hour run. Got off the ships, moved to Canada, moved back from Canada, first wife, ended up in Florida, and thought I had found somebody who wanted to travel the rest of their lives with me. But we found a great place. I live in a fantastic community in central Maine, filled with artists and musicians and storytellers, and an amazing community here on the river. And so you find this amazing place and you don't want to give it up. So we had been nesting here for the past 9 or 10 years. And at some point needed to run. And I think that part of my desire to run was just that constant desire that seems to be inherent in my DNA of traveling and moving. So even though I'd found a comfortable nesting spot, the need to move on a consistent basis really started to call to me. So I started running on and off for the past couple of years, found that I was never going to be super fast, but that I enjoyed running for long periods of time, much longer than many of my friends. So 2, 3, 4 hours, where I'm getting adrenaline highs on the run that just keep me maintained. And so despite some physical setbacks, that's kind of where I've been at. And I've just been working on how can I consistently run on a regular basis and make that my life.
And entering running 50 marathons.
Yes,
in
that's
50
exactly
weeks.
Right. Had a fairly major life change in this past year. And for the past couple of years, the big dream had become my ex-wife's business. So my ex-wife had decided to become a massage therapist. She's skilled at it. She was excellent. So she plunged head on in it. And we had found an amazing space for her to do that. That was both our home and her spa. And then life changes. We decided at that point, a couple of years into this, that for whatever reason, the relationship was not working for both of us. And so something that had become a mainstay of my dreamscape changed. And I said, well, fantastic. Okay, so back to the dream board. If I could be doing anything in my life right now, if somebody gave me $1 million, what would I do? And I would be traveling and running. So I don't have $1 million. So I sat there and said, even without $1 million, running and traveling in and of itself are not difficult things to do. People think they are, but they're really not. There's a lot of options in many different ways. Running at its base, you need some shorts, and a pair of sneakers. Traveling, you need the ability to put one foot in front of the other. And even that is, not necessarily the case all the time. So I said, I can do this. So sat down, started mapping out a plan of how next year I can run in 50 states in 50 weeks.
Now, through that, are you going to hold a job?
No, I'm taking off a year. Now, I've saved a lot this year, and I also have a reserve just in case something was to go horribly wrong. Certainly, I have savings that if I needed to draw upon, that I could use that as a rescue fund. But most of this year has been paring back my life and sitting there saying, what do I really need? Far too often, I find that many of us fill our lives with things to take the place of what we really need. And the fact of the matter is, what I want or need is that I need at this time to run and to travel. So once you start paring out those things, other things become less important. Do I need to have the cable program? Do I need to see every movie that's coming out? Do I need to have tchotchkes around my house? This past year, aside from going through a divorce and having to sort through things, there's a lot of things that you bring into your life as part of your nest. Well, if the goal is not to have a permanent nest per se in the future, you don't need most of those things. So then it becomes a matter of quality versus quantity, and focusing on the things that are moving you forward towards your dream.
What are you planning on doing with all the medals that you get? I mean, you said no tchotchkes. I mean,
no, I have to admit, I'm not a huge medal collector. There is a great organization that you can donate medals to. I have a friend that helps coordinate that, and any medals that I win go to that organization at this point. Medals for, I can't remember the name of the organization. Medals at this point have become huge brass, crazy things that make me feel like I'm going to become a rapper in the late 80s or something along those lines. I have one or two medals that I keep because they are monumental to me, or because I could wear them. The medal that I got this year from the Bay of Fundy Marathon, which was my first official marathon of the year, is a fantastic handcrafted medal that is maybe the size of Canadian toonie, a little bit larger if you're familiar with that coin, and easily feels comfortable around the neck, that you could wear on a regular basis because it's handcrafted, has a fantastic texture. That sort of thing I could keep because I could wear that on a night out. I'm not saying I'm going to the disco or anything and stay in the lab, but I am going to wear that medal from time to time because it feels good. Most of the medals aren't medals that I would feel good, and just having them around my house for me, when I get back to having a house of my own, I am amazed when I go into other runners' houses and they have hundreds and hundreds of medals, and they've come up with these amazing systems for sharing their medals with the world. And in some cases, these people who run hundreds of races a year have their entire house dominated with these race things, and that's fantastic. If that in them empowers them to take that next step, that's great for them. But for me, the run itself is what empowers me to take the next step.
So the organization that you were mentioning was Medals for Metal.
Yes.
It's MEDALS, the number 4, METTLE.org. And I'll have that in the show notes as well. I already made a note to put it in there.
Fantastic. Great organization. They run some fantastic virtual runs where you run all together at a certain time, and then they send out these fantastic tchotchkes boxes so that you can be inundated with all these new companies that are coming out with great products for runners. But in and of itself, it raises a lot of money for a great organization. The look on the faces of kids who receive a medal, and the idea that you would be thinking of them whether you're thinking of somebody specifically, because I've run for people before, I've run with people in mind as I was running, or the idea that you're even just thinking of them in general, enough to give a medal, the look on their faces and their acceptance is really amazing.
No, I'd agree. I know some friends that donate to the organization. So, yeah, I'll like I said, I'll definitely have it in the show notes.
Terrific.
So what was some of the first steps you took to get started training for for all these marathons in such a short period of time?
You know, for me, I look at others and they plunge right in, Joe. There's some people that do this on a much shorter period of time. There is a fairly famous British comic who also does serious work, so not to downplay him, but he's definitely known as a comedian known as Eddie Izzard. And he, with about 5 weeks of training, ended up running 42 marathons in 52 days. Every day walked or ran for about 26, 27 miles in England. And that was a bit much. I'm amazed. People sit there and go, Derek, I'm really amazed at what you're doing. I'm amazed that he would plunge in. He said the number one thing that he developed was a healthy respect for pain. And part of me and my running is I'm trying to avoid pain. I'm trying to run for life. I'm trying to keep moving. So I've developed patterns that make it very aware that when I'm doing certain things that I know at this point are tearing down my system, I stop. It is I won't debate with myself at this point. So if I feel sharp pains for whatever reason, it is 2 weeks off, so that I can rest, recover. The micro tear, whatever is occurring, has a chance to recuperate, and then I slowly eke back out. Mostly, I follow a run-walk regiment that's been laid out by Jeff Galloway. There's other people who propose it, but he is the major proponent of it. So, and has a vast body of work that he reads. Unfortunately, we don't have a Galloway group directly up here in Maine or central Maine where it's easy to travel to. But I'm hoping that on my travels that I can get a chance to run with some of those groups and see some of the longer practical purposes. But even with that, I have to admit his training cater, the people that he has around him were a bit amazed when I had written, because he has a program for coaching through at least one marathon. And I said, well, I have this money set aside, and it would be fantastic if I could get this coaching from him, realizing that it's mostly set emails. It's mostly plug and play for him at the price that he's offering. I have access to emailing him for questions, but some of those questions are probably being answered by his team as a whole. And then for the most part, the training is set training for him. So I had written to them saying, well, I'm really looking to use this training to train for 50 marathons. And the emails that I got back were, whoo, well, that is very ambitious. And I don't know whether or not this training can really be adapted to that. And I said, really, I just am looking for a little bit of guidance. She's like, maybe we usually do one race. If you were doing something like the Disney World Goofy, where you're running kind of 4 short races in a row, maybe we could work the training and involve that. But the idea of the constant marathon, we really can't fit into this program. I said, oh, okay, fantastic, which was poor. I really, at this point now, after a couple months of putting my dream into place and getting people to realize that this is something that I'm going to be doing one way or the other, I really should have been a bit more direct and come back to the person and said, so let's talk about what you can do. Let's not talk about what you can't do. Let's talk about what you can do. If it's one race, that's fine, but realize that I'm going to be building on top of what you're doing. So how can we work that together? I didn't really readdress that. And I know that in the future, as I'm talking to other runners or other organizations, that I really need to focus on that, move forward with positive intent. So, okay, so you can't help me in this scenario. How can you help me? Who can help me? What would be the next step? Unfortunately, I think what was scaring me and why I didn't was the way that the letter was phrased. It made it sound like the next step was going from $300 to $1,000 or $2,000, since $300 is for one race, and I wanted to essentially do 52. So I think that scared me, and I shouldn't be scared. I should be able to say, look, this is what I want. Where can we meet as a halfway point? And if you can't provide that, who could? So you're the big name. Who's your second? Who's the third guy down on the list? Maybe the third guy down on the list would help me for $300. Something along those lines.
Well, yeah, it's tough sometimes to find those people. I mean, maybe reaching out to the guy that did was it 50 marathons in 50 days?
Right. I just found out about Eddie Izzard. So he did this back in 2009 or 2010, really just a couple years after the great Dean Karnassus did his monumental trek. And once again, I want to clarify what I'm doing. I'm actually not running 50 races. I'm running 50 race routes. So there are plenty of times where I am not getting a medal. It would be logistically and financially very difficult for me to do 50 marathons. A lot of marathons at this point are above the $100 rate, $100 mark for a marathon, even in an early submission series. So you might get $80 or $90 for a marathon if you're doing it a year in advance. And once again, that's quite a layout for something that I am not selling as a product in the future. Certainly, if anything, I'm helping them market, but I'm sure they don't sit there and see it quite the same way. They have, when you have a race of 30,000 runners, as New York does, they don't really need me to advertise them per se. So it's $150, Mr. Zardus. Oh, well, and I'm not trying to not pay them. I certainly respect why those rates are so high, especially running this past weekend. I ran in Montreal, and I ran the route of the Rock and Roll Marathon in Montreal. And during a race, you have cops, at lights. During a race, you have race support, you have volunteers. Even the locals have an understanding of where you are and where the trail is. Especially in a big city race, there's always somebody who might notice that you're off the beaten track, because I got lost something like 6 or 7 times during the marathon. Even having driven the track, even having done the research on the map, having friends who live in town, there are areas which look very much alike. You sit there and go, oh, yeah, this is the street. No, that wasn't the street. As unique a town and city as Montreal is with their architecture, they certainly have certain things that look alike. And I ended up adding a couple extra miles well before the point where I reached 20 miles and said, that's it. I'm tired of being lost. This is a good lesson, and we're going to move forward from here.
Well, yeah, that is an interesting aspect to it. The not, running the course, but not the official race. And honestly, you might find that towards the end of your journey that people might be more interested in what you're doing than just getting started, like just jumping out of the gate.
I'm fortunate enough, and this is how I have it planned right now. My first marathon, which is not an official race, is in Fort Lauderdale, which I lived on and off in for about 10 years as a home base when I was working on cruise ships, and then back and forth between Canada and before we moved up to New England. I lived in Fort Lauderdale. I still have lots of friends down there and lots of family who will support me. And the race track is actually fairly easy. So even if I didn't know Fort Lauderdale, it would be really difficult to get lost, because for most of it, you're running along the ocean to a certain extent. You're running along a major highway. Unlike Montreal, where there was quite a bit of zigzagging, they had little offshoots and little hammers that you would run as far as the trail was concerned. The second run is an official race. So I have a little bit of built-in consistency to begin my journey. And then as I'm getting tired towards the end, that's actually where some of the bulk of my races that I am going to be doing are situated. The company that I've been pacing for. So earlier this year, I started working with a company called Beast Pacing, where they get hired at races to run set paces. So local runners come in, or runners that are associated with Beast Pacing come in and say, hey, you've been struggling to break 2 hours on your half marathon. Well, I am the 150 pacer. So if you run with me, you will have a general idea of where you should be. I'm consistent. I have some tips of how to get through the tough parts of this course. Stick with me and I'll get you across the finish line in 150 or 2 hours. So depending on what time you decide to line up with. And when I'm pacing, I definitively build in a couple extra minutes into the pace so that people are crossing a minute or two before the time that I'm set. And Beast Pacing usually paces you at about 15 minutes after your best time. So we were talking about times before the interview today, and my best time for a half marathon is 2:15. So I can pace at 2:30, 2:45, 3 hours, or I could be a sweep for a half marathon, just coming up along and helping those people at the end who are sitting there going, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. Yes, you can. We can do it. I'm here. We're going to make it. And it's really a great feeling when you can help people across that finish line.
That's one of the things that I've kind of fallen in love with in most of my recent races is running not necessarily towards the back, though. In this past weekend, it'll be a while from now, running literally within starting with the last 100 people in the back. I mean, the balloon ladies, I could shake their hand. I was just so close from when we started.
I got to tell you, it's like the back of the bus, my friend. The true partiers are in the back of the bus. I'm not saying that those folks up at the front don't know how to party, but they probably have a race tomorrow as well. Whereas us in the back, we're sitting there going, we're going to take our time, enjoy the view. What? You want to offer me a beer on the course? Why, sure, that should be fine. So once you decide that you're going to be coming in at 5 hours and 45 minutes, coming in at 6 hours because you stopped and had a beer with somebody on the course, that's par for the course as far as I'm concerned.
I hear that. So how did your family take all this big pretty much expensive journey across the country?
There's so many things that we can spend our money on. There's plenty of people who will take the kind of money that I'm planning on spending and put it into a secondary education. They'll go back to school, or they'll open another business, or any number of things that potentially will be their next stage in life. And for me, I just know that I would like my next stage in life to involve these two things. I'm expecting, between meeting different people on my trip, reaching out as I have to different running groups and running organizations in some of the towns that I'm going to be going to, that I'm going to be making connections that somewhere out there, whether it's with a business of my own, whether Globo Run becomes the destination for travel running, or I end up working for a company that does something similar that allows me to travel and run. I think that this is going to be my entryway into that either lifestyle or next career for my stage in my life, if you will. I've always traveled at one point or another, so my family is used to me being gone, and they're used to me being out there as far as where I want to go in this life. So they take it pretty well, and they're very supportive. My dad just sits there and goes, "Oh, that crazy son of mine, this is what he does." And at the same time, my dad is 70 years old this year, can bench press 260. So he has his own, he can bench press me essentially. So he has his own fitness goals, and he sits there and goes, okay, so if these are your fitness goals and that's what you want to put it towards, and you feel that this is going to make you a better or stronger person, then go for it. After my first divorce, my dad had said to me, you know what, the number one recommendation that I have for you is to buy 2 new pairs of running shoes and just start running. Just start running all the time because you seem to enjoy that. I didn't really listen to him enough after that first divorce. And I'd like to think that I'm somewhat taking his advice now.
Well, I'm curious, what's been the biggest roadblock when it comes to running for you?
Ego. Ego is without a doubt the biggest roadblock. It is always there for any runner. There is inherently with running a competitive aspect, whether it was when we were in the dawn of time and running was running for food, we were hoping to catch something, or eventually when the first stone was cast that we were running away or running towards a battle. There is an ego that overrides almost all running. And whether it is I'm running great, so I want to run faster, I'm running great, I want to run further, I'm not running great, but I said that I was going to do this, so I'm going to do it. Ego gets in my way all the time. And I need to pare that back and make sure that the planning portion of my brain has a strong enough idea of what it wants to do that it overrides that ego. Because otherwise, when my ego takes over, I end up injuring myself. I sit there and I go, I'm running fast. I want to run faster. And then I go to run faster. And then I go, I'm running faster and I want to run stronger. So then all of a sudden I start working out, or I start adding things in that are not part of the larger plan. And inevitably, those are the things that end up breaking down my larger goal, which is to keep running.
Now, Derek, what was your childhood dream growing up?
I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And you may notice I'm wearing my glasses today. I was told at an early age that I could never be a fighter pilot because I wore glasses. And I've had glasses since I was a real kid. So that was totally crushed. And my dad was in the Air Force, so he should know, right? Now I find out that there are tons of fighter pilots that have vision, whether through contacts or whatever. But at the time, contacts were a distant thing. I did have contacts by the time I got to high school, but even as a kid in third grade, the idea of, no, you've got really bad eyesight, you'll never be able to fly a fighter jet kind of thing. But that's what I really at one point wanted to be, was a fighter pilot. And then through my teenage years and into the early 20s, I wanted to be an actor. And I've done some shows and had done some plays. I was fortunate enough to be an extra in one or two movies. But in the end, that wasn't really, as passionate as I was at that time, it wasn't enough to sustain a longer passion. If there's something that's been consistent throughout my life that I truly love, it seems to be travel.
So, speaking of travel,
yes,
what state are you most looking forward to, and which state are you least looking forward to?
So the state that I'm least looking forward to is the only state that I had never been to before, which is North Dakota.
Oh, I was gonna say that.
Yes, absolutely. North Dakota is last on most people's list.
They have a shirt for that. You know that. They have a shirt. You got to go to the visitor center.
It's not just a shirt. I'm pretty sure it is now their official state motto.
Yes, yes.
The last state you want to go to.
Well,
well, they have money now because, they had money. I don't know how it's changing, but they've had money because of the oil boom up there. And they put the money into an ad campaign, but the ad campaign's a little questionable, mark us off your list early because you'll never want to come back is not necessarily something that inspires me. I am excited. It's Fargo that's in North Dakota. So between the movie and now the new TV show, I guess there's probably tours where I can see the wood chopper, which is on their site a huge thing. So
that's right in their visitor center, actually.
Yes, that's
and it's best for last. It's the shirt that you can get. When you go there, tell them. Seriously, because I only know this because John Oliver talked about it on his show because of the whole oil problem, problems that they have there. So go to the visitor center. Tell them it's the last.
Looking forward to, only because there's something, once I've done the states, then I'm like, I've done all the states. The state that I'm most looking forward to, I'm gonna take two, to be honest.
All right, go ahead.
Take two, and one is Utah. For whatever reason, I have been to Utah, and I've been there long enough in a day to say that I've been to Utah, but I was on the other side, on the Four Corners, and it's a rather boring part of Utah. We were just literally passing through for the day, and we had a day in the boring part of Utah. I'm really looking forward to going to Zion National Park. There is a marathon, St. George Marathon. I won't be running the official marathon, but I will be running the route. And you're going by a lot of these beautiful landmarks that we tend to identify with the Great West desert and Hardstone. And then very shortly thereafter, although I've been to California many times and I've been to many areas of California, the area that I'm really looking forward to is Lake Tahoe. For whatever reason, just because where it's positioned, it never quite fit into the schedule to get up to Lake Tahoe. But when you talk about childhood dreams, I think that all the video games when we were kids, Joe, and I don't think we're too far off as far as age difference, it seems like all of the video games that involved sports of one sort or another, especially exports, always had a Lake Tahoe background. So I fell in love with Lake Tahoe on an 8-bit, 32 color, digitally squared look. So when I saw my first pictures of actual Lake Tahoe and sunrises and sunsets, it's just always been a place I've wanted to go, but timing wise never seemed to work out. So that is definitely number one, and number two is probably Zion National Park and Lake Tahoe.
Now, when you're doing all this, are you just traveling from state to state, or are you going to fly back and forth, or
No, I am getting in a car. I just purchased a new to me Ford Focus with great gas mileage and a little bit more room in the back. So in a worst case scenario, if I need to take a nap sort of thing, many states I'm staying with friends. I already have about 23 friends who at any point would say, Derek, come visit us, and I'm going to spend the week with them. So that was easy. 23 states down. On top of that, I've had now about another 4 or 5 friends of friends, volunteer spaces. And I had not previously heavily promoted my trip because I wanted to make sure that I was physically able and ready to do this. And with this past month, well over about 150 miles between running and walking in October, and even November, even though I didn't finish the full marathon this past Sunday and I only did 20 miles, I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling that I have the tools to be able to complete this. So I'm finally reaching out to friends of friends and some larger groups that I can draw upon to be hosted in each of the states. So I'm actually driving a clockwise circuitous route around the U.S. And I have maps on roadtrippers.com is kind of where I'm mapping things out. And unfortunately, none of the mapping companies allows you to have a pure 50-point map. Road Trippers is as close as it comes. They allow up to a 40-point map. So what I've actually broken it down is into quarters with the main marathons. As far as my weekly schedule, I plan on being in a state for about a week. So in that week, I will do a marathon. I will do a state or national park. If the marathon is in the state or national park, then I will probably do a big city run of some sort. I want to do a group run because I organize a local group run, and I'd like to see what's making those other group runs so successful so I can help build the group run in my community a little bit better. And then hopefully, if my legs will handle it, I should be doing about 4 runs a week. So the 4th run should be just a general run just for keeping things in place and making sure that things are gliding smoothly in my body.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And if you need a place to stay and just outside of Philadelphia, South Jersey, Delaware, or Maryland.
Thank you. I look forward to meeting you. I definitely want to get together with you, and I want to run with you.
I
That
think
would
you'll
be
far outrun
fantastic.
me.
I'm,
At this point.
I'm really not that fast, Joe. And the great thing is you use occasionally Nike Plus to gauge your runs, and you've posted sometimes and things, and I said, oh, for me, I run very slow. I do not set high goals for most of my training runs. I do a speed run once every 2 weeks. I do, and then the alternate week is a hill run. Most of the other time, I am running at an easy clip. Although I feel that I could do the half marathon in 2:15. In general, most of the times when I'm running a half marathon kind of training, I'm really shooting around 2:45 to 3 because it's training. And quite frankly, this entire year is training. So although the goal is to pick up momentum, I'm not planning on starting those first marathons in any kind of record pace for me. If I'm picking up a PR at the Two Lights Marathon in Mobile, Alabama, then I've done something wrong, as far as I'm concerned. I'm blowing my load a little too early in the game. As far as it's concerned. And there's plenty of people who do that in the race. You watch people take off. You get caught up in the moment. You get caught up in the competitive spirit, and you just take off. And 3 miles down the road, you're like, whoa, where'd all my energy go? Well, you just ran 2 minutes faster than you've ever run before for the last 3 miles. Of course, you have no energy left. You used it all up for that. Which is what I enjoy about the Pacers is when people sit there and go, aren't you running a little slow? And I'm like, nope, I'm running right on pace. So if you're planning on running with me the entire time, this is going to be the pace that we're going to run on. But I appreciate that offer, and I will definitely run with you. As it turns out, my dad lives in Delaware. So he is kind of a base camp for the Philadelphia, Baltimore area per se, aside from the Delaware race. But if you know somebody in Scranton, instead of choosing the Philadelphia Marathon, which I've run before, I'm actually there. The Scranton Marathon gets a lot of great press as one of the great marathons. I know you're sitting there. I see the look on your face. You're going, are we talking about Scranton, Pennsylvania? Because that's how I grew up thinking of it. But I understand that the town has gone through a bit of a renaissance, and as a marathon, it's incredibly well supported, and it's a beautiful race through the town and through the river. Once again, I won't be running it through one of its benefits, which is the support, but I do plan on running that race for Pennsylvania. So if you know somebody there, in fact, for people who are interested in supporting the trek, as it were, my website, globorun.com, has a page for hosting. So, and a page with the races that I'm planning on running and the approximate times that I expect to be running that race. In general, I plan on running most races on Sundays. Why? Because in general, Sunday mornings, there's less traffic. There's less chance of me getting hit by a car. There's less hubbub going around if it's a city. It's safer on the roads if there is not a side course to run or a sidewalk to run on, or even a large shoulder to the road. Nobody likes running in the ditch. And so Sunday morning is an ideal time, but let's face it, if I see that there's a thunderstorm on Sunday morning, I'm going to run on Saturday or I'm going to run on Monday. The goal is beautiful runs in beautiful places. So if you are interested in being a part of the journey, people can go to my website, globorun.com. They can check out the races, and they can let me know if they live close by and if they'd like to host.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we definitely should get together there. And it's funny you say Scranton, because somebody I just met was like, oh, yeah, I'm from Scranton. And somebody gave them a look like...
The look, right?
Yeah, and he's like, no, it's not as bad as it used to be. And...
You know, what a fantastic, another great tourist slogan. It's not as bad as it used to be. But the same thing can be said about Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a gorgeous city. It is a beautiful city. They've done a phenomenal job at cleaning up. But I can tell you, when I went there for the first time in 1982, it was a scary, blighted land. I'm not exaggerating, where you would drive into downtown and the Great Tower of Learning would have these cigarette nicotine stains of dripping down the side of the building. There literally was this smog residue that was on the buildings that they have since cleaned up. They've cleaned up the air quality. They've certainly cleaned up the city. The rivers are, if not pristine, they are stunningly beautiful. People say, "Oh, you don't want to jump into those rivers; you'll end up with an extra leg or something like that." But it really is. That's Pennsylvania. Some of these places have turned it around, and it's always amazing to hear people go. It's especially people who are from there, because those are the people that you tend to have the hardest time turning around. When people who live there can say, yes, it's not as bad as it used to be, that's a huge thing, because time and time again, when I hear people slagging on cities, it's people who are from there, not people who visit.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'll see. I'll dig them and see if I can figure out who it was I met that was from Scranton.
Terrific.
Because I think they were a runner. So,
and for a runner, even better.
I think so. Anyway, I know that it's a little early in the game for you, but what do your dreams for the future look like?
That's what I really love about being on this podcast, Joe. Thank you very much again for having me. Is that this is the beginning of my journey, that I haven't really. Sure, I've run and I've done some fun things, but this is the beginning of the dream, and it starts really, in about 40 days, comparatively speaking. So I will start traveling down to Florida, but I will do my first marathon January 3rd, if all things work out properly. And so the dreams for the future, ideally what would be fantastic is, after running the states, that I go on and run the world. If somehow, whether through communicating through the site and finding an audience or something along those lines, can sustain me being on the road, whether as an ambassador of one sort or another, either for companies or for races or so many other opportunities, part of this year is about exploring that. So ideally, if that was to occur, this first year would be around the US. I would end up having 2 to 3 months off in the beginning of 2017. And I'm actually looking at hopping on a cruise ship to cross over to Europe, April of 2017. And I would start running 50 countries in 50 weeks in Europe, starting the end of April, beginning of May in 2017. That would be the big dream.
Wow. Oh, that definitely sounds obtainable once you get through this.
Right. Exactly. And this is just baby steps towards total global domination.
So before we wrap up here, is there any last thoughts you'd like to share?
The thoughts that I'd like to share is that if you have a dream and somebody is telling you that it is impossible, you need to prove them wrong, because it is very easy to plan that dream in such a way that it can be done. Obviously, time travel, very difficult. Flying, very difficult as a person who is a super person of some sort. I'm not saying you should mutate your genes and become the Hulk. But if there is something that you're sitting there saying, gosh, I wish I could do this, even just the planning of that dream is incredibly enriching. My last couple months, as I have been planning out what I needed to do in order to make this larger dream possible, has been incredibly enriching for me to see what I could do, who I could speak to, how I can make things happen for myself. And I think that in that process, people will be surprised at the doors that will be open. And quite often, what I hear from people who do those sort of things is that they go back, when they look back, is they say, I wish I had dreamed bigger. And so if you have that dream now and you're sitting there going, that's impossible, then you should be working towards that larger dream and find out what little dreams will get you there. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow and become an astrophysicist. I'm saying that if that's your larger goal, sit down and start planning out the steps of how you can go from being a real estate agent to an astrophysicist, and start working towards that, because the journey itself is almost as rewarding as the eventual trip that you will make.
Oh, that was beautifully put. And I couldn't agree more. You do have to dream big, but at the same time, you have to do do it, and
yes,
do what you can do when you can, while you can, and a lot of things will fall into place from there. Things you don't even realize are available to you yet until you get there, until you make those first couple of steps, and it opens up ways of thinking and channels of doing that you didn't even know you could. So
yeah, two conflicting quotes I have kind of working towards my goal this year is, the first is the idea of Patton saying that luck comes to the prepared. So you want to have enough things planned, but then there's another armed forces quote that the plan never survives the enemy. So I want to make sure that I have enough plans so that when I meet the enemy, even if the enemy is my ego, that I have options of where to go.
Sounds solid to me.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
No, thank you. So real quick, just give your website again, how people can connect with you.
Yep, it is Globorun, GLOBORUN.com. You'll be able to track where I'm going. I expect to be updating the site every week with the runs and where I'm at, and the amazing people I'm sure to be connecting with. Now, at least one of them will be you, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. Maybe even some of listeners with the Dreamers podcast might be interested in hosting or just connecting and getting out and running with you if you're in their area.
That would be awesome.
Would be. So I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I would love to have you on again. Maybe, I don't know, maybe halfway through or all the way through. Let's see what we can do.
I'll see you in 7 months.
That sounds pretty solid. I like the idea.
Terrific.
All right, thank you again, Derek.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.